Okay. I'm good with you are.
All right, well, good morning. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be a seminar on how to get up and down from the floor safely, and as well as exercises to do to strengthen the upper body and the lower body to make it a little bit easier to get up and down from the floor. Some people may be already getting up and down from the floor sometime on their own. Sometimes we might end up down there when we least expect it. So we want to be as strong as we can so that we can get up easily and safely. We're going to show a few different variations on how to get down and how to get up. We're also going to take into consideration some people may have knee issues or hip issues, back issues. And also we are recording this. So if you need the information again, it will be made available, and you can go back and watch it. Always feel free to see Carson or myself as well if you have any specific questions pertaining to anything that you have going on. Also know that we have a mat table in the fitness center that's raised. So if there's anything you want to do, if there are any exercises that you want to practice but don't want to do them on the floor, you can come down and practice those in the fitness center. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carson, and he's going to take it from here.
Good morning, everybody. So we're going to break down some of the ways in which we can get down to the floor. The big way that we're going to break it up this time is we're going to go through 3 different ways that we can get from a standing position to a position where you're on your hands and knees. And with the last position, putting you in a place for those who have issues with their knees, putting you in a position where you don't have to worry about actually putting any weight onto the knee joint at all. So what Leslie's going to do is I'm going to cue her through some steps as she starts from a standing position up to a position where she's on her knees and hands. She's going to stand up and she's going to return to a standing position, and I'm going to go back through those movements twice for each variation that we do. So that way you can make sure you're getting a good understanding for the movement that's involved in here and get a pretty good idea about whether or not you think it might be a good way for you to be able to get down to the ground. And again, that's why we're coming up with a bunch of different variations here, is to make sure we're giving you options and know that there is a bunch of different ways that you can get from a standing position to a position on the floor and vice versa. Even if it's something where you end up on the floor unexpectedly, and being able to figure out a way to kind of put yourself in a better situation, especially if you're trying to ask for help or if you're just trying to get off the floor. So with that in mind, we're going to first start off with our standing position here, and always you can use a chair or you could use a wall. A chair would probably be a better idea, but with these variations in mind, we're going to start off using the chair here. And the first thing we're going to use is just called a simple squat method. So facing a chair, what you're going to do in this position here is we're going to first start off with placing our feet shoulder width apart. And from here, whenever we squat, we always want to make sure we're paying attention to weight distribution in our feet. We want to make sure our heels are staying on the floor as best we can, and that our big toe and the ball of our foot are also bearing weight as well. So when we first start off, we're just going to start with a squat by pushing our hips back, letting our body descend down towards the floor, keeping weight evenly distributed through our feet. And we're going to reach out with our hands. Now we're reaching out towards the chair, and we're going to squat to a depth where we feel comfortable leaning a little bit towards the chair. And as we get closer towards the ground from here, we're going to let the weight shift forward, and you'll feel the weight kind of shift off the heels, and your heels will lift up. And in this position, now you can start to slowly lower yourself down towards the ground, one knee at a time, by having your weight also being supported by the chair using that upper body. And then from here, one arm at a time, coming down to a position where we see here where she's on her hands and knees here. So we're going to do that one more time here. So, Leslie's going to start back in a standing position. Again, the feet are going to be shoulder width apart. We're going to start off squatting, reaching out forward. And when you feel like you're getting close enough to the surface of that object using that chair, you let that weight kind of shift forward. And then from here, you're letting your upper body bear a little weight as your knee, one at a time, is going to be lowered down to the ground. And then from there, both hands. And you can go ahead and stand up again. Now, again, that's a squat, just kind of using a simple squat to kind of get down to the floor. Let's say you didn't have a chair. The other method that we can use here is without using a chair or any assistance at all or even a wall, we're just going to have you do the squat, so shoulder width apart with the feet, and you're just going to squat as far down as you possibly can. You know, then this is going to require a decent amount of hip mobility and ankle mobility. Once you get down to a certain depth, you need to start reaching out towards the floor with your hands, and your body weight's going to shift forward. You want to squat down as far as you can to brace your fall and get both of your palms of your hands down. And then from this position, you can slowly lower both knees to the floor.
Sideways.
And we'll do that one more time from a different stance here. So the feet are still shoulder width apart. You're just squatting down. Weights in the heels and the ball of the feet, and you're reaching out with your hands. And once you start getting a little bit closer to the floor, then the weight shifts forward towards the ball of your feet. Make sure the palms of your hands are, both of them are on the floor before you really try to bring your knees all the way down to the floor there, okay? All right, so we can go ahead and stand up. So that's our squat method here. Next one we're going to do is a split squat. So again, we're going to assume that you might have a chair nearby. And in this position here, you're going to get in a lunged position or a split squat position where one foot is staggered out in front of the other. So what's important here is that we do have, ideally, the front knee should not be forward past the ankle too far. Ideally, it's just on top, maybe even slightly behind, because the knee may end up pushing forward, and this can act as a way to buffer out that movement, or at least that range of motion that you might have. Now, from here, what we're going to do is the back knee is going to bend straight down. Now, ideally, you're going to keep your torso in a nice upright position, and you should feel weight in the heel of the front foot. So that heel shouldn't be coming off the floor of the front foot. You should be feeling weight in that heel as you slowly lower yourself down. Now, you can reach out in front, and then you can slowly lower yourself one knee at a time at this point once you have a chair nearby. And again, both hands to the floor, or you can return to a standing position, Leslie. Face to the side, or if you want, we can put a chair towards your side here.
Over here?
Yeah, so we'll put the chair here so that way you still have a good profile. And the chair is at your side, so you'll face perpendicular to the chair. The chair's on your side, and then from here, either using the arm of the chair or the back of the chair. There we go. From here, you get in that position, and then you can kind of lower yourself down there. The back knee bends down. You're already using that chair. And then from here, hands, one hand at a time, goes down towards the floor, and then you're able to pull that back knee back into a position where you have both hands and knees on the floor. Now make sure again that you are trying to get the palms of your hand solid connection to the floor as soon as you possibly can. Now we'll do that one more time standing up, and this time we'll do it as if you didn't have a chair or a wall nearby. So without any assistance, you'll get into a split squat position or a staggered position here. Now this one is going to challenge your balance. So remember, don't tightrope it. You do want to have not just space lengthwise, but widthwise as well. So imagine that you're standing in a rectangle and you just want to fill up the opposite corners with your feet. Again, from here, the back knee is going to bend straight down. You know, you can put a hand or two on the leg to kind of help you balance as you come down to the floor. Then your free hand can come down, palms all the way down, then the other hand, and then now we're in our position where we have both hands and knees. We'll do that one more time here. Again, we're in our staggered position, taking note of the front knee starting off either just on top of the ankle or maybe just slightly behind. So that back knee comes straight down, and the hand, free hand, comes all the way down, and now we're back to our hands and knees again. Okay, so there's one more variation that I'd like for us to go over. So this one might be a little bit easier, or it might be a little bit more kind to those of you who have had knee surgery, or your knees are can experience a lot of pain quite often, especially when you're bending and you're going through a large range of motion. Instead, what we're going to do is what's a hip hinge. So predominantly going to be a hip hinge, but we are going to bend the knees just a little bit. So facing a chair, we're going to have our feet shoulder width apart still, or if you want, you can go even wider with this. We're basically just going to do a hip hinge. We're bending at the hip, hinging at the hip here. Knees are slightly bent. And from this position, once you feel comfortable enough, make sure that you are starting off close enough to a chair. You'll start to reach out with your hands. Now, as soon as you've hinged over far enough to the point where your palms of your hands can reach down towards the seat, then let your weight shift forward. And from here, your weight will come off the heels, your heels will come off the floor as you start to bend your knees, letting your upper body bear as much weight as you possibly can. When your knees start to bend towards the floor, you're going to start to turn your body a little bit here. Now, at this point, you can either stay on both of your hands, or you can even come down to an elbow as you twist and slowly lower your body towards the side of your hip, the side of your leg. So we'll do that again here. This time, once we put our hands on the chair, we're going to come down to an elbow. So let's bring our left elbow down. And now we're going to start to rotate and turn towards the opposite direction, because we're going to come down to the side of that hip of that leg, the elbow that's bent there. And that might be a little bit easier. And from this position here, you can consider that a hands and knees position without having to worry about actually putting your knees on the floor in a weight-bearing position. Okay? Yep. Now, let's do this one more time, but let's say you didn't have a wall or you didn't have a chair. And we'll start up. Now, this one does require a decent amount of flexibility, but if this is another option that if you're doing some of these other variations and they're still causing a lot of pain, you can try this one here. Just please keep something by, like a chair or a wall if you need to. But you can also practice this as well, where we start off with our feet shoulder width apart. We're going to do that hip hinge method, but without using any help here. Now, again, you're bending at the waist, at the hips here, and you should feel a good stretch in the hamstring. That's how you know that we're doing that here. And then from here, once you get to a point where you feel like your head is about to go past the level of your heart, you should notice your body weight is going to shift forward. From here, let your knees bend a little and let your weight shift towards your toes. Embrace the fall. Now, once you're in a position where you're just on the balls of your feet. Oh yeah, soft elbows. Make sure you have soft elbows when you land. Soft elbows. Now in this position, you can turn your body towards the side and rotate and lower yourself down to the side position. It requires a lot of upper body strength. But if you feel as if your knees really don't give you a lot of room to work with, this is an alternative that you can use. And again, it's always best if you have a wall or a chair at your side. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over a couple methods of starting off on our hands and knees and getting into a position where we're completely flat on our back. So the first thing we're going to do is just going to be on our hands and knees. So whether you've used any of those three methods to get to this position here, from this position, there's a couple ways that you can get to being on your stomach or getting onto your back. Now, this position here, the first thing we can do, which might be a little bit easier, is we can just go ahead, come down to our elbows, one elbow at a time, and then slowly just lay flat on our back, and now we're on our, or sorry, lay flat on our stomach, and now we're in our prone position here. Now let's say we want to get onto our back. From here, what we can do is we can tuck an elbow in close towards our side, right in front, and then we can start to turn in that direction, starting with the shoulders first and then with the hips. Once you're lying on your back. From here, you can go ahead and relax. So we can go back up to our hands and knees. We're going to do that one more time. So that requires no getting onto our side from the get-go. We're just going straight to our elbows, and then we're going to lie flat on our stomach first, getting into a prone position. And then we're going to tuck one elbow in close towards our chest, and then we're going to roll in the direction of that side, starting off the shoulders, following with the hips, and now we're lying on our back, completely supine. Okay, so we'll go back to our, so that's kind of just a nice forward laid out position where you're just going to the stomach first. Now let's say you don't want to get in that position here. We could go over another way here where we kind of roll instead. So from this position here, we're going to turn our body, our lower body, tuck in a knee, and we're just going to set our hip to one side as we roll towards that side of the hip. And now we're in a position here where we can lower ourselves down to the ground, either just by kind of slowly coming back, or you can come down to one elbow. So in this position, we're turning our hips to the floor. And if we want to, we can even stay in that position here and the side of the hip that we're on, come down to that elbow. And then from here, it'll be a little bit easier for you to start to lay back as there's a little less distance between your back and the floor. And then one more time, we'll go through that one, starting off on our hands and knees. And again, from here, we're just gonna turn to our hip, and then you come down to the elbow. And then from here, you can either, if you wanted to, you could either lay flat forward on towards your stomach, or you can just continue in that direction and you'd be lying flat on your back from here. So those are just a couple ways in which we can get from our hands and knees to a complete supine position lying on our back. Now, here comes probably a more difficult position or the more difficult task is getting from our back all the way up to a standing position. But let's go over a couple ways of first just trying to get back to our hands and knees. So starting off lying on our back, what might be a little bit easier for some, if you don't have a lot of shoulder issues, is instead we can kind of decide to roll to a particular direction. So we're going to roll towards our left side over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with turning the shoulders and the knees in that direction, which is going to help turn the hips here. Now, if you have pain on any given side, try to go and turn to the side that gives you less pain. And from here, what we're going to do is you're one hand at a time. You're going to start to lift yourself up onto the elbows first and the forearms, and then from here onto the hands. And now you can swing your hips up to a position where you can bring your knees into a weight-bearing position. Now we'll do that one more time, starting off on our back. Then from here, we're going to first make a decision on which side we should turn. Turning to the left again here, so we're going to let the knees fall and the shoulder rotate towards the side we want to. Then from here, we're going to get up onto our forearms to help bear the weight of our upper body. And then from here, we're going to get up onto the palms of our hands to increase the amount of clearance and space we have, so that way we can rotate our hips up and shift our legs, our knees up under the hips. Very good. All right, so let's go over a different method here. So it's lying on our back again. So from here, if you wanted to, we can kind of do, it's like a modification of like a Turkish get-up, where what you're going to do is you're going to post up to a side. So you're going to roll to a side, and you're going to extend the bottom. So basically, let's say we're going to go to the left. You're going to extend your left arm out to the side, straight. You're going to roll towards that arm. You're going to turn your body to that arms here. So what you're going to do is we're going to get up into a position where it's kind of like a side plank almost. You're going to get up onto that forearm of that left side there. And then from here, if you want to, you can post one of your feet up onto the floor, just like that. And from here, you can now lift your hips up and rotate into a position where you're on your hands and knees. We'll do that one more time. So we're going to just make a decision on which side we're going to roll. We're going to have that arm is going to be straight out. We're going to roll towards that arm. The knees are going to roll in that position. Now we're going to try to get up into like a side plank so you can post that top leg up on the floor a little bit. We're going to get up onto that forearm and then post up to the palms of your hands as you rotate those knees up under your pelvis. So that's another way we can do this as well. Now, if rolling from side to side causes a lot of pain, the other alternative is it's going to require a lot of abdominal strength, but you can also perform a sit-up to a position where you're actually sitting up, helping and using your arms to kind of post up. So that way you can avoid having to roll onto your side. So you start off supine, you tuck your knees up a little bit, and then from here, either you can use your hands to grab onto the knees or the legs, and you can crunch yourself up that upper body high enough to the point where you can get a hand onto your side to help push yourself up all the way upright. And now from this position, you can start to turn your body to a position where now we can rotate the feet or the knees up under the pelvis. And that way you can avoid having to roll onto your side. So we'll do that one more time. Basically, you're just going to curl yourself upright, whether you need to use your hands. You can use your you can put your hands on your legs or your knees, and you're going to curl yourself up just far enough where you can get one hand back to help you continue to lift all the way up. Make sure you have the palm of your hand in contact with the floor, and now you're going to rotate your hips and your knees to the side where that hand is until we're in a place where we can actually scoot those knees underneath our pelvis here. Now, from this position, we're back to our hands and knees position. Now we want to get from here to a standing position. Now, the first thing we can do is, let's assume that we do have a chair nearby. We can bring that chair near us here. So we want to scoot ourselves close towards a chair. And what we're going to do first is we're just going to kind of put our hands up onto the chair, one at a time. And then from here, 1 foot at a time, letting your body weight kind of shift towards the hands as necessary. And then you're going to make sure that that heel of the foot that's in front, you can put weight in that heel. Don't let that heel lift up. You're going to push through that heel, using the chair as best you can until you get to an upright standing position. So it's kind of like that split squat method in reverse. So we'll do that one more time. So on our hands and knees. So we're going to reach out to the chair. We're going to put our foot up. Make sure we're pushing through the heel of the front foot and leaning towards that chair for a little bit of help if you need to, especially if you do experience some issues with your knees. Now, the alternative, we'll go back to the hands and knees here again. Let's say like you don't want to put a lot of pressure on the knees. So let's start off on our side, but we're going to start off near a chair. So if you can scoot your back close towards the chair, what you're going to do is you're going to put up one elbow on the chair. So it should be the elbow of the side that you're leaning on. So if you're on your left hip, leaning on the left hip, then you get your left elbow up there in your forearm. Now what you're going to do is you're going to kind of turn your torso towards the chair, get your other hand up there. Now this is going to require a lot of upper body strength as you lean as much of your body up onto the chair, and you're going to get up onto your toes, trying not to let your knees bear any weight. Then 1 foot at a time, bring it closer towards the chair. And that could be an alternative for you to try not to put yourself in a position where your knees are having to bear a whole lot of weight. So we'll do that one more time. So you scoot your back close towards the chair. You're sitting on the side of your hip. If you're on your left side, then you're going to have that left elbow and that left forearm on the chair. Then you're going to start to turn your chest towards the chair. Both hands are going to be on. Now you're going to have to use a lot of your upper body as you lean, pull yourself up on towards the chair, lifting yourself up onto your toes, rotating your hips in the same direction to the point where you can get your feet flat on the ground, and from that point to a standing position. Now, alternatively, let's say that we did not have a chair. Getting back up off the ground from our hands and knees, we can kind of reverse engineer that split squat method here. So we'll start off on our hands and knees. What we're going to do from here is we're going to decide which foot we're going to just place out in front of us. So we're going to place one of our feet out in front. You have to reach out. Now that arm of the same side, you can put on the thigh right there. You're going to lean your body weight a little bit forward here as you tuck your back toe onto the floor. And from here, pushing through the heel of that front leg, you're going to use what you can to kind of stand all the way back up. So it's literally a split squat from a very deep position. Now you want to do this very slowly. When you do get in position, you want to make sure that you do have weight distributed in your body, because if you just try to stand up and you're not bearing enough weight in the front foot, you could just stand up and push yourself back. So you do have to keep a forward orientation with the upper body as you stand through that front leg from here. The other alternative, again, starting on our hands and knees, saying we don't have a chair or a wall, is just trying to get into a position where we have both feet on the floor. So you kind of get into like a frog-like position here where you have one foot out to the side and the other foot, and then you walk your hands back up to the point where you can bear weight in the heels one hand at a time, and that's kind of like reverse engineering the squat method.
Can babies do that?
So maybe.
I don't know.
We'll do that one more time.
When they get up, they tend to kind of.
That's true, that's true.
Yeah. We're going back to how we all learn to crawl and walk, basically.
So one at a time, you're going to kind of get a toe out to the side and then the other toe out to the side of the other foot there, bearing a lot of your weight at the upper body, and then slowly walking your hands back is going to shift your body weight back into your feet. Then you can use your hands pulling the back up onto your legs to stand nice and upright. And those are just a few ways that we can get from our hands and knees back to a standing position. So those are a few methods of getting down to the floor and getting up off the floor. And now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over some exercises that you can do at home, or you can even come down to the fitness center and to help you strengthen the muscles that you'd be using getting in and out of these positions, or being able to maintain some of these positions in general. So the first one, just some simple exercises we can do is you can always use a chair to help out. Any of these exercises we do, you can always use some assistance or another. So either using the back side of your chair or free without having to use anything at all. We're just going to do some basic body squats. So body weight, just using your body weight, your feet are shoulder width apart, weight is in the heels and the ball of the foot, as well as keeping your big toe down, extending your hips back as necessary, keeping a nice upright posture. We're just pushing back and coming down, and then we come right back up, pushing through the heels and the ball of the foot. Again, when we're coming down, we're letting the knees bend, the hips are extending back. Keeping a nice even distribution of weight throughout the whole foot, and keeping our chest out. Now again, if you want to, you can do these with your hands on the back of the top part of the chair, or you can do this without any assistance at all, or you can even do this exercise with your hands on a wall, and you can kind of like walk your hands down the wall as you squat, back up and down. The next variation we're going to do is a split squat, where again you can stand at the side of a chair, and you're going to split your legs. Now when you do this exercise here, Basically, a split squat or lunge is like an ambulating split squat. So we're just going to like lunge in position without having to worry about stepping. Your feet are already in that position here. Now, the position you want to be in is not a position where it's tight rope. You want to have space both length and a little bit widthways. Thinking about a rectangle, and you're filling up the opposite corners of that rectangle with your feet. The knee of the front foot should start off directly on top of the ankle, or maybe even a little bit behind, because we don't want it to start off in front of the ankle, so that way there's a little bit of a buffer in terms of when we start to squat, trying to prevent that knee from pushing too far forward. From here, our back knee is going to bend straight down, keeping our body in an upright position, and then we're going to push through the heel of the front foot to bring ourselves back up. You can do this again, either with a chair at your side. You come up and down. You can have a hand on the chair if you want to. It is good to make practice of being able to go through that range of motion while being able to keep your upper body in an upright position as best you can. Trying to avoid leaning over or doing things like that, because that can push the knee excessively too far forward. Alternatively, what we can do for some other exercises here is we can do a lot of plank variations. So whether or not you want to do them on the floor, or you can use the chair even, is you can do both where they're straight arm at the top or on the seat of your chair, where you walk your feet out. And what's important here in this position is that kind of like a constellation, you want to be able to draw a straight line through the joints, the shoulder, the hips, the knees, and the ankle when you're up on your toes just like this. We don't want the hips to droop down, and we don't want the hips to be extended back up too high. It should be nice and straight, kind of like a wooden plank would be. In this position, we want to make sure that our hands are directly underneath the shoulder joint. And then from here, you're pulling in the stomach and making sure your core is engaged. And you would hold these just for a period of time. And you could do sets of, again, anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds is very good. If you can do up to a minute, then you're doing pretty good. You should probably even consider challenging yourself by doing these on the floor even. So if you can do a position like this, yeah, and even alternating feet, bringing a foot up, can also add another challenge to you. Now, you can also alternatively, you can do these on the floor. Let's say those exercises aren't very challenging for you on the chair, then you can do this on the floor. So you could do, again, that plank, straight arm, straight leg. You could also do this on your knees if you wanted to as well. Again, when you do this on your knees, just making sure that your hips don't kick back and that your hips don't droop down, that they stay in a good alignment with the shoulders and the knees at this point. So the other way that you can challenge yourself to a greater extent is coming down towards your forearms. So probably the most difficult plank, if you really want to challenge yourself to that extent, is with your knees off the floor, your toes are bearing your weight, you're on your elbows and your forearms. And then again, from this, if that's also not as challenging, you can also lift up a foot and alternate in this position as well, or you can just hold one of those positions for a period of time. Another thing that we can do is you can also do what are called plank ups or plank push-up positions, where you start off on your forearms and then one hand at a time, you get up into a stiff arm or a straight arm position, and then you come back down. And so this is an exercise you would do at a continuous pace. It does not matter how fast or slow you go, just as long as you can maintain that pace and trying to minimize the amount of tilting and rotation that might happen at the hips. You just want to be able to try to come straight up, keeping those stomach muscles engaged throughout. Now you can also do that again on your chair. This would have to be done on the seat, coming down from your forearms to the palms of your hands in an alternate fashion, just like that. Now, a couple other things that you could do for plank-wise is doing a side plank. Now, you could do the side planks are pretty difficult, and you can start off with a few variations here, doing straight arm coming off the side of your chair. Just be sure that the chair you use isn't going to slide on you or anything like that. Or you could use a rail if that might be a better option for you. Or you can take something down a little bit lower towards the floor. You do the arm of the chair or up to the point where you can have your arm straight on the seat. Now again, you can spread your feet out in a couple of ways. For one, you can stagger them. You'd want the top leg to be forward, the bottom leg to be back. You can come down to a knee if you wanted to.
It's hard to keep your arms straight on a knee. You have to be on your.
So if you need to, if you want to come down to a knee, doing it on your side, you would come down towards your elbow and your forearm. The hardest way to do this, in terms of leg position, is stacking your legs too. Or if you want to continue to challenge the upper body, so stacking your legs just like that.
Takes a lot of shoulder strength.
It does.
Yeah, if you have bad shoulders, this would be very difficult.
Yeah, so if you have bad shoulders, this would be a very difficult exercise for you, especially if you're on the shoulder. Alternatively, you can do this on the floor with the straight arm. And again, you can stagger your legs any which way that you want to. You can have one knee bent, top leg is straight. You can have both knees bent. You could have both legs straight and staggered, or you could stack them. The less surface area you have, the more difficult it's going to be, and it's going to challenge your balance. Alternatively, if you wanted to continue to challenge the shoulders, you can do this from the forearm, and that will challenge the shoulder to a greater extent. It's always best to start off these exercises at the least challenging variation possible, and then from there, try to add some difficulty. Again, if you're going through these exercises and you're not feeling much, that's probably a good cue to tell you to try to choose a progression of any of these exercises that we've just shown you to make it a little bit more difficult. One last thing I do want to show you is a hollow position where you're on your stomach, you're on your back. And what this does is this can help us train those abdominal muscles to help us turn and roll. So as if we're trying to turn towards our stomach. What we're going to do in a hollow position is you tuck your pelvis back, you're on your lower back, and your shoulder blades are off the ground. So one thing you can do is you can kind of pull the back of your knees up towards your chest using your arms and just trying to hold this position here. As best you can, trying to make sure that you're breathing, that you're not holding your breath, and you should feel that lower back pushing down into the floor. And so that's a good hollow position from here. It's having to use both the top and lower portions of the abdomen. And from here, if you want to, if you can hold that position, you can even slowly start to rock side to side and try to control. Now, when you're in this position here, it gets a little bit easier to rock side to side because you're not having to roll onto the shoulder, and it could be a little bit easier for you to get to the side of your body. So being able to hold these for periods of time, or you can count rocks side to side, is also a good way. Also, trying to challenge the hollow in general. So as if you wanted to get back into a hollow, tuck your knees towards your chest, and then from there, trying to keep your knees up without using your arms. You can have your arms out to the side, or you can have them up above over your head to make it more difficult for your upper body, provided you're keeping your shoulders off the floor. And then you can even make it more difficult for the lower body by extending the legs out in front of you. Again, just making sure that your pelvis stays posteriorly tilted. And these are just a few exercises that you can do to kind of help get yourself a little bit more comfortable and increase the strength of those muscles that you'd be using getting in and out of these positions. Oh, and then we can also do push-ups. So there's a lot of variation for push-ups, just kind of like the plank, where you can do them from the top of your chair, back of the chair. You can do this on the arms of the chair, or lower yourself down a little bit further to the seat of your chair. Now, when you do push-ups, we want to make sure that we don't wing our elbows out. We want to keep our elbows relatively squeezed in and our shoulders roll back and down. We don't want to shrug when we push up. And when you do push up, make sure your hips lower down with your shoulders, but your shoulders should kind of lead the movement there. So as long as your shoulders are lowering down, then your hips can come with them, but your shoulders and hips should move together as one. So kind of still using those principles of a plank, where you're keeping that stomach pulled in. And you can again continue to challenge yourself by lowering yourself down even further to the floor. You could do this modified with your knees bent, with your knees on the floor, or one knee on the floor at a time. And you can also change the position up onto your toes, and you can change the width at which you hold your hands apart from each other. So you can go wider, or you can go closer. And again, the closer that your hands are going to be, the closer your elbows will be towards your torso. So again, trying not to let the elbows wing out like crazy. Okay. Is there anything that you wanted to give them on the side?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are just a few different ways that we can go through increasing our confidence being in these different positions here. There's a lot of reasons that you might find yourself in these positions. Again, if it's a fall, or if you're trying to get down to play with your grandchildren, whatever it is, we want to make sure that you feel confident in being able to get into a position where you can either ambulate yourself to an object that can help you get back up, or if you lowered yourself down, you know how to get back up off the ground. So again, whether you're using a wall, a chair, or you're not using any assistant, these are just a few different ways where you can get from a standing position to a position on your back and all the way back up to standing. And other than that, if you have any questions about any of these exercises or any of the movements that we just went over, please don't hesitate to reach out to Leslie or I, and don't hesitate to come to the fitness center, because this is definitely a place where we can help you kind of get into something where it's, if you wanted to create a routine, we can do that as well. And we also, again, we have the therapy table in there, so in case you don't really want to get all the way down to the floor, we do have some equipment in there that allows us to go over some of these movements that we did here, but you don't have to worry about actually going all the way down to the floor. Yeah. But other than that, that pretty much wraps it up. We appreciate any feedback that you might have. And again, that we are recording this, so you will have access to this video at your leisure and at your convenience. So in case you want to go back over this a few times, you'll just be able to go into our library and it'll be there for your access. So thanks again for joining in. We hope you enjoy the rest of your